We'll just wait a couple more minutes for everybody to roll in, or whoever will make it on this very rainy stay in bed kind of morning. You could probably do this whole class in bed. That's my guess. Oh, hey Cass, there you are. Hooray. Oh, yay. All right, so we're gonna use, and I know I sent this in the email, but just to repeat myself, I guess, definitely a blanket for some padding and support, and a strap of some kind, and either a block or just like a book that you have around. It doesn't really matter. Okay, yay, cool. All right, yeah, we'll give ourselves a few more minutes. See here. And it might be nice to have the controls for your music around. We're going to get started with the music in just about a minute or so. And we're going to start off lying down. So feel free to just get there whenever you're ready. We're going to take constructive rest, I'm thinking, to begin with. And it could be helpful for you to have a blanket underneath your sacrum, the back of your pelvis. Could be really nice to stretch your arms out to the sides, but maybe this morning you want to curl your arms across your chest, and that's fine too. So just really take notice of your shoulders as we get started here in constructive rest. You can hit play on your music as you get yourself all settled in. Today, we're mainly going to be focusing on meridians that run down our arms. So specifically the heart, large intestine, and lung meridians. We'll do a little bit with our lower body too, but mainly we'll focus on what's up a little bit higher. Good, yeah, so just take a little bit of time to really get comfortable and grounded and settled, and arranging your limbs so that you feel like you can maybe be still for a little bit. Good. You might decide to take your fingertips and just graze your lower ribs. Good, and notice the way that your breath is moving down there in your lower ribs, into your belly. Good. For those of you just rolling in, getting started in constructive rest, arranging your arms so that you're comfortable, or maybe your hands are on your belly. Good. And if it's comfortable for you to close your eyes, let them come to a nice soft close. Let your eyeballs sit heavy into the sockets. Your eyebrows soften a little bit. Let your jaw soften. And allow your tongue to soften a touch. Your inner ear. Good. And listen for the sound of your breath now. And remembering that the sound can be the thing that carries you through this practice. If you ever start to feel lost, it's nice to come back to. It's always there. Good. Good. And you're there with your breath now, so notice the length of it, the depth of it. Good. And if it's a little bit shallow, see if you can deepen it just a tiny little bit. Right, and I'd like to begin this morning by reading a very long poem, maybe a medium long poem that I've read in class before a number of times, but every time I read it, I just pull something different away from it. Have you ever tried to enter the long black branches by Mary Oliver? Have you ever tried to enter the long black branches of other lives? Tried to imagine what the crisp fringes, full of honey, hanging from the branches of the young locust trees in early morning feel like? Do you think this world was only an entertainment for you? Never to enter the sea and notice how the water divides with perfect courtesy to let you in. Never to lie down on the grass as though you were the grass. Never to leap to the air as you open your wings over the dark acorn of your heart. No wonder we hear in your mournful voice the complaint that something is missing from your life. Who can open the door who does not reach for the latch? Who can travel the miles who does not put one foot in front of the other, all attentive to what presents itself continually? Who will behold the inner chamber who is not observed with admiration, even with rapture, the outer stone? Well, there is time left. Fields everywhere invite you into them. And who will care, who will chide you if you wander away from wherever you are to look for your soul? Quickly then get up, put on your coat, leave your desk. To put one's foot into the door of the grass, which is the mystery, which is death as well as life, and not be afraid. To set one's foot in the door of death and be overcome with amazement. To sit down in front of the weeds and imagine God the 10-fingered sailing out of his house of straw, nodding this way and that way to the flowers of the present hour, to the song falling out of the mockingbird's pink mouth, to the tippets of the honeysuckle that have opened in the night, to sit down like a weed among weeds and rustle in the wind. Listen, are you breathing just a little and calling it a life? While the soul, after all, is only a window, and the opening of the window no more difficult than the wakening from a little sleep. Only last week I went out among the thorns and said to the wild roses, deny me not, but suffer my devotion. Then all afternoon I sat among them. Maybe I even heard a curl or two of music, damp and rouge red, hurrying from their stubby buds, from their delicate watery bodies. For how long will you continue to listen to the dark shouters, caution and prudence? Fall in, fall in. A woman standing in the weeds. A small boat flounders in the deep waves, and what's coming next is coming with its own heave and grace. Meanwhile, once in a while, I have chanced among the quick things, upon the immutable. What more could one ask? And I would touch the faces of the daisies, and I would bow down to think about it. That was then, which hasn't ended yet. Now the sun begins to swing down. Under the peach light, I cross the fields and the dunes. I follow the ocean's edge. I climb, I backtrack, I float, I ramble my way home. Okay. And here, from constructive rest, it might feel nice to stretch your legs out nice and long and stretch your arms out past your head. And maybe you're rotating your wrists around a little bit. So many of the points for these 3 meridians are located around the wrist. So just take notice of how the wrists are feeling this morning. You might really move your fingers too. Give them a nice little wiggle. Yeah, ooh, I see fingers. Awesome. Good. And if you can grab a hold of your elbows overhead or interlace your fingers overhead, give that a go just for a second and notice how things feel from your shoulders, your armpits, down the length of your arm, through your elbow, up to your wrist, and into your fingertips. Good. And then for these next 5 breaths, really become aware of the way that your rib cage is moving. Maybe you're honing in and detecting that movement side to side and front to back, top to bottom. Good. Two more deep breaths here. In and out of the nose, if that's possible for you this morning. Maybe in through the nose, out through the mouth. Okay, and then from here, we're gonna shift over into banana, over to the right. So just slide your heels over. It might be nice to cross your right ankle over your left, and then slide your upper body over as well. And you might keep your hands connected overhead or your hands to your elbows. Or if your shoulders are feeling a little bit strained in this position, you could place a blanket underneath your forearms, or you could just allow your hands to go wherever they need to go. So for instance, I'm placing my left hand on the left side of my rib cage this morning. Good. And just take time to notice the curves of the back of your body. The way your body touches down and lifts up. Good. Notice if your glutes are clenched. See if you can soften your butt a little bit here. Good. And for the next few breaths, bring most of your focus right down into your left hip point, the left side of your low belly. Is the movement there subtle? Is it dramatic? Do you feel a lot of sensation or not much? There's no wrong answer. There's no wrong way to be here. Good, and then bring your attention up a little bit higher to the space in between the top of your pelvis and the bottom of your left ribs. Good. Let your breath be as big as it can be, as long as it can be. And then for these last 7 to 10 breaths, notice the left side of your rib cage, your left shoulder and arm, your head and neck, letting everything kind of soften into the floor. Good, another 2 big breaths right here. Good, and then as you come back through to the center, take your arms back alongside your body. Bring the soles of your feet to the floor. And let's engage our dignity muscles here for a minute, our glutes and the muscles of our back. And just lift up into a bridge pose just for a couple of breaths. Doesn't have to be anything huge or dramatic, but use your glutes. Right? Use those muscles that surround your spine. Let your chin draw in towards your throat a little bit. And if your toes are death gripping the world, pick them up and spread them out and set them back down again. Good, just a couple more breaths here. Good, and then go ahead and set your spine and your pelvis back down. Let's take the soles of the feet together and the knees out wide. And we're gonna cross the arms over the chest here and just come into a recline bound angle, but with this kind of like protective upper body. And it might be nice to rock your upper body from side to side, walk your fingertips around as far as they can go. Right, and notice the back of your heart touching down to the floor. Maybe even that rocking motion continues, almost like a little massage here for that sometimes tough, intense back of the heart space. Good, let's take 5 deep breaths. Good, and then just go ahead and release those arms. Send your legs out nice and long again. Flex the feet deeply and notice the backs of the legs. Notice your calves. Good, backs of the knees. And then let's stretch those arms out past the head again, and we'll scoot over into banana on the other side. So this time your left ankle might cross over your right. Okay, if your shoulders are not really thrilled with your arms being overhead, just take your arms any way they want to be. Maybe that right hand settles onto the right side of your rib cage as a support. Good. Settling in here for a few minutes. Getting settled in, take notice of your right hip point. Good, and what's underneath this pose? What thoughts are flowing through? What is the quality of your breath? Good, and what's happening in between your right lower ribs and the top of your pelvis? Good. And now your rib cage. Good. The right shoulder, length of the arm. And notice your head and neck and make sure they're not strained. About 10 more breaths here. Good. Last couple breaths. Make them big. You really observe the movement of the ribs, movement of the belly and lower back. Perfect. All right, and to come on out of this one, let's kind of shift back through the center here. And you can choose again to take that recline bound angle with your arms across your chest if you like that. Or maybe you're crossing your arms over your chest and dropping your knees from side to side. Kind of massaging the lower back and that space in between your shoulder blades at the same time. Good. We got a minute or so here in the middle of things. All right. And then as you come back through to the center, let's just bring the knees in towards the chest and give your lower back a little bit of space. Sometimes after banana pose, it can start to feel pretty crunched up in the lumbar spine area. So yeah, let's just lengthen it a touch. If you want to take a full happy baby and reach for the feet, you can certainly go there. Okay, but really notice the shoulders, right? How are they responding in this pose? Okay, ideally, we keep that lower back connected. We keep that space in between the heart or shoulder blades connected. Good. Few more breaths. Alrighty, and then from here, we're gonna make our way into a child's pose. And I just wanna offer up like all the ways to get there. It could be you just kind of rolling over to your side and then making your way into child's pose. Maybe you wanna rock along the length of your spine a bunch of times, and maybe you can catch a boat pose on your way into child's. Hey, maybe you feel like moving this morning and you find a down dog on your way there somehow, or even like a plank. And so the choice is definitely yours. I'm gonna go the easy way this morning. Take your time. We're gonna maybe spend like a minute or so finding that transition from your back into child's pose. And I want to offer up a little bit of a shoulder variation here in child's pose. You might grab a hold of your blanket and roll it up a little bit. And then as you bring yourself into your child's pose, rest your forearms on that blanket just to find a little bit more space through the undersides of your shoulder blades. And you might even consider bending at the elbows and folding your hands back behind your neck. Good, and now just take notice of the center of your chest here in your child's pose. I know in child's pose, we often think about our lower body because there's typically kind of a lot going on there. Okay, but notice what you're feeling around that central point in your chest, around your heart space. And to encourage a little bit more space and movement there, perhaps a slightly deeper breath. Doesn't have to be huge. Good. If your head has made contact with the floor, consider rocking your head from side to side a little bit to massage your brow. And I don't know about all of you, but maybe I've spent like the last few years gritting my teeth and furrowing my brow. I feel like that's been kind of a normal thing. But right now you don't have to do that. Right now you can really soften your face. You can soften your eyes a touch. Nothing to see at this moment. And allowing your eyes to not take in the outside world, but to turn in a little bit. To observe what's going on beneath the surface within you. Good. Maybe 5 to 7 breaths more in your child's pose. Good. And then here you can make your way onto hands and knees. I know sometimes after practicing child's pose, I like to take a quick trip into downward dog just to, give my knees a little bit of a break. So you might do that for a moment or two. Good. As you find your hands and knees eventually though, take that blanket underneath your knees so that there's a little bit more padding and softness for yourself. Good. And as you find your hands and knees, spread your fingers out really wide and keep your wrists more or less under your shoulders, your knees more or less under your hips. Okay, and without any movement of the spine just yet, let's soften the belly. Just let the belly kind of fall here. You take deep, deep breaths, feel the crown reach away from the tailbone, but the belly soften. Normally when we move into this shape, we're really engaging the belly and pulling it up. Let's do the opposite just for a couple more breaths. Good, and then we're gonna start to move the spine like a jump rope. So imagine that the tip of your tailbone and the crown of your head are like the handles of the jump rope, and your spine is the rope. Good, and if it feels kind of awkward or foreign to move like this, it's okay. You can just move your spine in any intuitive way. The benefit of practicing this jump roping action is that it helps to kind of soften the attachments of the diaphragm to your rib cage. Sometimes when we're stressed, those attachments can tighten up a little bit, or maybe a lot, and it restricts our breathing. So try to breathe as you move here. Maybe get your head and neck into the motion. Good, a few more breaths, maybe 5. Good, and then let's start to walk our hands back towards our knees and come to sit up on our heels. And if sitting on your heels doesn't feel great, you can sit on your butt, that's fine too. You can sit in a chair. And let's grab a hold of our strap. And we'll just start to move the shoulders a little bit. So you want to have the strap, or your hands on the strap, kind of wide to begin with. And then from here, let's just sort of take the arms up and overhead and around the back. And I want to invite you again into some kind of intuitive movement here. So maybe you like the back and forth, the up and over. Or maybe you want to spend a couple moments like dipping side to side, and stretching through the armpits. So the first point of our heart meridian is located right in the belly of our armpit. Isn't that lovely? And see if you can pay some attention to that space. It kind of gets no love, oddly enough. Good, another 10 breaths or so worth of some kind of movement with the strap here. Sometimes I like to keep my arms back for a while and just breathe and notice the way my shoulder blades snuggle in towards my spine. Even dropping the head down, chin to chest here. And notice, are you breathing through your nose? Are you breathing through your mouth? Good, and then go ahead and release that strap down. And we're gonna take a mudra for a moment, or a hand gesture, but first let's just interlace our fingers and kind of swim the hands a little bit here like they're a fish. Right. Sometimes gripping that strap can be a little bit stressful on the wrists and the muscles of your hands. Okay, let's press the palms forward, keeping those fingers interlaced. Let's take a Hridaya mudra. So you're gonna take your arms and cross them like an X. I love this one. Pinkies connect, they interlace. Ring fingers interlace. Leave your middle finger out. Interlace your index fingers. And then connect your middle finger and your thumb. I'll do it one more time. So we're crossing the elbows, interlacing little finger, ring finger, and index finger. And then connecting the middle and the thumb. Good, and let's just sit here for a moment. Notice your fingertips, the length of your fingers, palms, backs of your hands. Notice your wrists, your forearms. Let your elbows hang heavy, shoulders relaxed. Notice your collarbones. And then your heart space all the way around. And 3 more breaths. Good, and go ahead and release your hands out of Fearless Heart Mudra. Give your fingers a little shake. Play your air piano. And let's move back onto hands and knees. And we're just gonna do a little bit more with the wrists. So let's take one or both of your hands in the opposite direction so that your fingertips are facing back towards your knees. If that feels really uncomfortable, take your fingertips out to the side. That's fine too. Good, and take a couple moments. Maybe you're moving in an intuitive way here. Your shoulders might circle above your wrists, or perhaps you want to take some cats and cows and really move the spine, or even that jump roping motion, if you like that. Good. Let's take 7 or 8 breaths with this type of movement. Good, and then slowly come on out of this. We're gonna make our way back to sit on our heels again. And if you happen to have a block nearby, this could be a really nice thing to use for this, or even your rolled up blanket. We're gonna place our knees on the block and then tuck the toes underneath for the toe spot. Figured I'd sneak in everybody's least favorite yin pose this morning. But I think we're officially in like boot season and our feet need some space, I think. So while sitting here in your toe squat, it might be nice to take your arms out to the sides and really reach. That's one option. Another option is to give yourself a hug or to eagle wrap the arms. That might also feel good. So just choosing your favorite. And if you have given yourself a hug or if you're in eagle arms, just unwind them, shake the shoulders out for a second, and then find the other side. Good, 2 more deep breaths here. If you have your arms doing something fancy, just let them relax alongside you, kind of heavy and loose. Good, all right, and then let's remove that block. We're gonna make our way back into downward facing dog. So just taking your time. You spread your fingers wide. Good, and maybe take a super generous bend in your knees to get started this morning. And then like slowly straighten the legs and bend the knees again and straighten. And let your head drop way down here. Again, the face can soften. If you want a lion's breath, stick out your tongue on your exhale, cross your eyes. Yeah. And then we'll take a slow walk, hands to feet, feet to hands, a little bit of both. Coming into your standing forward fold. Good, and here in your standing forward fold, widen your stance just a little bit. Your feet might be about as far apart as your mat. All right, allow the upper body to get really heavy. Grab a hold of your elbows, soften those knees, and let's give ourselves a little side to side sway here. Let the head hang way down.
gonna stick around here for another like 2 minutes maybe. So you can choose to find some stillness. You might decide to interlace your fingers behind your back and press your knuckles up, or even use your strap behind you. Or maybe, again, you want some movement. Perhaps you're inhaling, sliding your hands up the fronts of your legs to a halfway lift, and then exhaling and sliding your hands down the backs of your legs to a forward fold again, and repeating that a few times. So whatever you need, stillness, movement, something intense, something not intense. Sometimes it's good to check in with how intense things have been for you recently, and then like do the opposite. It's been really intense, give yourself some ease. Just about another 5 deep breaths. Perfect. All right, we're actually going to stand up this morning. And as you come up, grab your block. We're going to do a couple of exercises here that are not yin yoga or even really yoga at all. But we're just going to do them anyway. So first of all, we're going to stand up nice and tall. We're going to take our block or a book or whatever you have and wrap your fingers around it. Most of your fingers on top, your thumbs to the sides. And then we're just going to press it overhead. And actually, maybe this is a yoga thing. This is a Katona yoga exercise called King of the Mountain, which I find to be rather difficult. Right, but it really asks us to use our arms in a way that is sustainable. Right, even though we are holding up this block and our arms are overhead, can we feel a little bit of softness in the shoulders? We breathe through our nose. Right. Can your feet relax a touch into the ground beneath you? I won't hold us here forever. Just a few more breaths. Good. And then go ahead and just release that down and hold the block in one of your hands and give your arms a nice swing. Okay, a little bit of balance. Can't all be hard work all the time, right? Not sustainable. Good. As you turn side to side, maybe think about letting your head do the same if you don't have any vestibular issues. Good. Right, and we'll bring ourselves back through to the center. We're going to practice this thing that I learned recently called the teacup mobility exercise. So everybody just kind of watch for a moment. It's maybe a little hard to explain, but you're going to take your feet kind of far apart, maybe a little bit wider than hip socket distance. And you're going to take your block in your hand, like you're going to serve somebody a cup of tea on it. All right, and then you're going to take that block underneath your arm and out and behind you, up and overhead, and then back down to where you started. So let's all give that a go. Take it behind you, give it a turn, reach it out into the side, up and overhead. If you have a lot of shoulder issues, this might be difficult, so just do what you can, all right? It's totally fine if this whole exercise isn't really accessible, just do the parts that work. All right, we're gonna keep going on this side for a little bit. If you drop the block,
It's okay. Let's pick it up and keep going. Try to breathe through your nose here. Good, and then let's come back through to the center. Let's take the block in the other hand that you didn't have it in before and just give yourself a swing. Try to really breathe in a way that feels good to you while you're swinging. You might want to take some big dramatic exhales, or maybe you just want to focus on cultivating like a calm breath through the nose. Good. All right, and bring yourself back through to the center. And we're going to practice that on your non-dominant side now. I'm sure you chose your dominant side before, so this will be a little bit weirder, but just see how it goes. Underneath, around to the side, up and overhead, back down to where you started. Be sure your feet are wide enough to support all of this movement that's happening in your upper body. Good. Try to breathe. Maybe just a few more of these. You're doing great. Good. All right, one more. Oh, all right, let's put that block down. And let's give our arms this like kind of cross body swing here. Maybe your arms reach up and down and up and down, just a few of these. Oh, maybe some breath of joy. We're at home and we can do this. I wouldn't advise doing this in public these days, but breath of joy being an inhale, 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 exhale. Maybe a few. And then when you feel like you're done, let's just stop here in mountain pose and rest your hands on top of your heart. Notice your heart pumping. I'm thinking of other times when it might feel like this. Okay, just a couple more breaths here. Okay, and then we're gonna make our way down into a squatting position. And it might be nice to have your block nearby, so your feet are a little wider. You can grab a hold of your block and maybe place it underneath your seat so you're not really straining your joints. You could also sit in a chair, bring your knees wide, or take a happy baby on your back, because we're all kind of going to our back soon anyway. Good. And then here from the squat, take your left hand down and reach your right arm up. Give it a big stretch. Notice that connection between the heart, the fingertips, the whole line of the arm. Good, and come back through to the center. That right elbow presses into the right inner knee, left hand reaches up. Good, and then go ahead and bring that left arm down, and we're gonna make our way onto our backs. Right, ooh, I lied. Let's not do that. Let's make our way into our butts first. And we're gonna turn our hands around so that the fingertips are pointing towards the sitting bones. Your feet are on the mat, knees are bent. Lift yourself up. Drop the head back if that works. Good, and now we will find our back. So go ahead and settle yourself down. Bring the knees in towards the chest. And feel the back plane of your body really connecting to the floor. Your chin draws in towards your throat. Good, and from here, let's cross that left ankle over the right knee and hug the right thigh in towards the chest for a little bit of like a figure four. And if you want a little extra, there are a couple of things you could do here. Maybe send that right foot up, or you could just grab a hold of your left lower leg and extend your right leg down onto the floor or the mat. Okay, just hanging here for about 10 breaths on this side. And notice if you're breathing just a little, or if you're breathing a little bit bigger today. Great. Alrighty, and let's come on out of this, placing the soles of your feet on the floor. Pick up your hips and scoot them over to the left, and then drop your knees over to the right, and your arms can just do anything they want to do here. Right, so maybe they're stretching out or out past your head, or on your belly and back, or on your leg. And take the time to really kind of like shift and settle in this position. Beautiful. And spend a little bit of time in the center of things. You're right there in the center of your chest, upper back. Imagining a space around that that's kind of like a beach ball, you know? And breathing deeply and noticing the movement there. Your lungs massaging your heart. Your diaphragm moving. Good, last few breaths. Lovely. Okay, as you come back through to the center, just do what feels like the next right thing. Maybe it's a bridge. Maybe you want to lie in Shavasana or constructive rest or pull your knees to your chest. Maybe you have a shoulder stand practice, or you want to put your feet up, legs up the invisible wall. Yeah. Good. I don't know, maybe you want a bridge or a wheel or something. It's your practice, so make it work for you. Few more breaths. Okay, before you eventually find the figure four over to the other side. So right angle will cross over the left knee. Good. Yeah, you might hug that left thigh in or extend that left leg long on the mat or towards the ceiling. Beautiful. Good. Another small handful of breaths here. And then start to unwind your legs and make your way over into the twist on the other side. Making sure that however you position your body, you feel kind of comfortable. You remember, back in the early days of my practice, thinking that I should be feeling something really intense in my twist and constantly like trying to force something. But really the whole purpose of yin yoga is to not force anything. It's to just let ourselves be, leave ourselves alone for a minute in these shapes. Remember that things don't always have to be so dramatic or so big to be effective, to be really beautiful. Good. Breathing 5 more deep breaths into the bottoms of your lungs. Good. And then as you are done with those breaths, make your way into whatever your final shape is going to be today. I'm going to suggest a starfish pose, lying on your back, your feet kind of far apart, your arms spread out. But maybe you want to curl up into a ball and roll over, and that's great too. It's really no wrong way to take your final shape. And if you choose, you might focus your breathing here. As you inhale, you might imagine that the breath is moving from the furthest reaches of your body, like the top of your head, your fingertips, and the soles of the feet. You're breathing in, your breath is concentrating in your heart. And then as you breathe out, imagine that your breath is moving from your heart back out through your limbs, back out through the top of the head, out into the world. Good. Inhaling to bring it all in. Exhaling to let it all go. And I have one more poem that I'd like to read to you before we close, and as you find some ease here. This one is called How Dark the Beginning by Maggie Smith. She wrote, "All we ever talk of is light. Let there be light. There was light then, good light. But what I consider dawn is darker than all that. So many hours between the day receding and what we recognize as morning, the sun cresting like a wave that won't break over us. As if light were protective, as if no hearts were flayed, no bodies broken on a day like today. In any film, the sunrise tells us everything will be all right. Danger wouldn't dare show up now, dragging its shadow across the screen. We talk so much of light. Please let me speak on behalf of the good dark. Let us talk more of how dark the beginning of a day is." And breathing deeply into your whole body, right into the dark acorn of your heart, and back out again. Good. And maybe thinking of a purpose for the rest of your day, rest of your week, an intention, an idea of how you want to carry yourself. And you'll kind of know when it's time to move again. So indulge yourself. When you're ready to move, you can just start small, perhaps. And then maybe those small movements turn into something bigger. And those big movements eventually bring you up into a seated position where we'll all meet. And if you feel comfortable having your camera on, and even if you don't, just look at the faces in front of you. Let's all look at each other for a minute. Get real close. Hi, everybody. I'm so glad to see all your faces. So nice to practice in community again. Yeah. Why don't we take our hands and set them on top of our heart and just really give it a little massage, right? A little something. Maybe like a loving little circle here. Good. Awesome. And then let your head drop down towards your hands and your heart, honoring this time you spent practicing and taking care of yourself and honoring each other too. Oh, thanks everybody. Namaste. Oh, so good to see your faces. So good to be back.